morning. Today I'm going to be going over our day 6 math, and it looks like we have a math task, a worksheet, and a little bit of fluency practice at the end. So let's go ahead and get started on our math task. And our task today is we're going to be comparing numbers. We're going to be comparing numbers using these symbols: greater than, less than, and equal to. We're going to compare the numbers, and then we're going to determine if each comparison is true or false. So let's go ahead and start with A. We have 2 hundreds plus 3 ones. So what I found, it's easier just to write these out. So we have 200, there are no tens, and then there are 3 ones, and we are comparing that to 5 tens plus 9 ones, which again, no hundreds, so we have 59. So the numbers we are comparing are 203 and 59. And if you look here, it has the greater than symbol, and the greater than symbol is saying 203 is greater than 59. And remember, we know this is the greater than symbol because the big opening is facing the larger number. Remember the video we watched in class, the alligator wants to eat the larger number. So A is true, and we're just going to put a T for true. Moving on to B, we are comparing 9 tens plus 2 hundreds plus 4 ones, and it's telling us that 9 tens, this is where it can be confusing because remember, we need to go in order of place value. So it would be very easy to say that this was 924, but because we need to go in order of place value, we have 2 hundreds, that's going to give us a 2 in the hundreds spot, 9 tens, that's going to give us a 9 in the 10 spot, and 4 ones is going to give us a 4 in the 1 spot, giving us 294, and it's telling us 294 is less than 924. Well, again, this is true because 924 is a larger number than 294, so that is true. Moving on to C, we are going to compare 456, and it's letting us know that it is less than 500s. Well, if we determine what 500s is in standard form, we know that is 500, so 456 is indeed less than 500, so C is also true. Now we're moving on to D. We need to figure out if 4 hundreds plus 9 ones plus 3 ones is less than 491. Well, 4 hundreds plus 9 ones plus 3 ones is, let's figure this out here. We have 4 hundreds, then we have 9 ones plus 3 ones. So that can be very easy to get confused that one of them would be a 10, which it's not. They're only giving us the ones, not the 10, so we need to add up the ones. So 9 ones plus 3 ones is actually 11. So we will need to regroup, so that will be 411, and it's asking us if 411 is less than 491, and indeed it is, so D is also true. Now we're going to move on to E, where we are comparing 3 hundreds plus 4 tens. Again, there's no ones, so when there is no ones, we are going to plug in a 0 into that place value spot. So 300s and 4 tens is 340. And it's asking us if that is less than 7 tens, 9 ones, and 2 hundreds. Writing this in standard form, we're going to start with the hundreds. We have 2 hundreds, and then we have 7 tens, which is going to represent the 7, and then we have 9 ones. So giving us 279. And this we need to determine if this is true or false. This is telling us that 340 is less than 279. We know that is false because if we compared the hundreds columns, we see that 3 is greater than 2. Moving on to F, where we are going to compare 7 ones plus 3 hundreds. Again, make sure you are paying attention to that place value, because it would be very easy to have this number represented by 73 when indeed it's 300s. There are no 10s, and whenever there's nothing of a number, we represent that with the 0 and then 7 ones. So instead of 73, this is 307 based on the place value, and it's asking us if 307 is greater than 370. It's using the same number, so we need to focus on that place value. The hundreds spot is the same, so we're going to move on to the 10 spot, and 7 is greater than 0, so we know this is false. Okay, the last one on this page is G. We have 200s plus 7 tens. So 200s, 7 tens. There are 0 ones, so we're going to use a 0 in that column. So we have 270, and it's telling us it is equal to 300s minus 2 tens. So if we have 300s, we take 2 of those tens away, we're going to be left with 200s and then 8 tens, which is 280. So it's telling us this is equal to. So 270 and 280 are not the same number. If something is equal, it would be the same on both sides. So this is going to be false. Okay, now we are going to move on to our worksheet, and this is reteaching. So again, this is just a little bit of review. Sorry about that. Lesson 7, we're comparing numbers to 1,000. And here it says, pictures can show how some numbers are greater than others. The greater number is circled. So whenever we're comparing pictures, whatever picture has the most is going to be the number that has the greatest value. And when you're comparing those, sometimes they'll ask you to look for which picture has the greatest value or which picture has the least value. So you really need to read those instructions to see exactly what they are looking for. So here you can see each number is represented by a picture. 200s, so we have 2. There is 110 bar. 7 ones, we have 7 individual blocks, and we are comparing that to 221, which is again represented by 200s to represent the 100 spot, 2 10s to represent the 10 spot, and then we have a single 1 to represent that 1 spot. So we're going to use that information, and we're going to move on to the next page where we're going to write the number. We're going to look at each picture. We are going to count the picture, we're going to write the number that the picture shows, and then we're going to circle the number that is greater. So we need to circle the number that is the largest number. It has the greatest value, which means it is worth more. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. In number 1 here, we have 100. So we're going to go ahead and start with 100, and let's count the tens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 tens. And then we have 2 ones. So we know this picture represents 192. And we are going to compare it to this picture over here, where we need to count the hundreds. And there is 100. Let's count how many tens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there are 0 ones, so we are going to plug in a 0 there. So we need to circle which picture has the greatest value, and 192 is greater than 190, so we are going to drag this circle, and that one has the greatest value. Now moving on to number 2, again, we need to look at the pictures and we need to determine the number. Here we have 200, so we know that's going to represent a 2 in the hundreds column, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tens, and there are 0 ones, so the 1 is going to represent the 0 column. Now we're going to move on to the second picture in number 2, and it looks like there are also 200, so a 2 is going to represent that number in the hundreds column, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are also 7 tens in this number, so a 7 will represent represent the tens column. There are some ones. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ones represent this number. So we are comparing 270 to 275. 275 has a greater value, so we are going to circle the 275. Moving on to number 3. Again, let's count these base 10 blocks to find out what our number is in standard form, and then we can compare them. Number 3 has 200, so we know a 2 in the 100 spot. There are 4 tens, and there is 1 1, so 241. Moving on to our next picture, we have 200s, 2 in the 100 spot. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tens, and we have 1 1. So if we look at the hundreds, those are both 2. So their value is the same. If we move on to the tens, we have a 4 and we have a 5. We know 5 is greater than 4, so we know that this picture represents the greatest value. So we are going to circle that particular one. Moving on to number 4. Okay, and number 4 we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hundreds. So an 8 is going to go in that hundreds column. We have 3 tens. The 3 will represent that tens column, and we have 3 ones. So a 3 will also represent the ones column. Moving on to the picture that we are going to compare this to, it also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hundreds. This particular picture has 1 10, so we're going to plug in a 10 in that tens column and 3 ones. So if we compare them, again, looking at the hundreds column, the value is 8, so we need to move on to the next column, the tens, to compare, and we have a 1 and we have a 3. 3 is greater than 1, so we know that that particular picture represents the greatest value. Okay, lastly, we have a little bit of fluency practice. So let's go ahead and get started on this. They're wanting us to find the sum of 12 plus 68. And this column, it says use any strategy. We are going to line it up and use standard algorithm. Remember, we line it up by place value, so we know the 6 is in the tens column as well as the 1, and then the 8 and the 2, or I'm sorry, the 6 and the 1 are in the tens column, and the 8 and the 2 are in the ones. We've lined them up correctly, so now we are going to go ahead and start with the ones column. And again, this is addition because we're finding the sum. 8 plus 2 is 10, so we're going to go ahead and our 0 is going to go down here, and we're going to need to regroup. So our 10 in our tens spot is going to go over to the tens column. Now we're going to add up that tens column. We have a 1 and a 6, which is 7. The sum of those is 7, and then we're going to add that 7 to the additional 1, which is 8. So we know 68 plus 12 is 80. Now we're going to use models or visuals to represent the problem. So we have a 1 10 and 2 ones to represent the 12, and then we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 tens and 8 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 8 ones to represent the ones column. So what we're going to need to do here is we need to trade out, because if you have 8 and 2, that equals 10. So we have 10 ones. We're just going to go ahead and trade that. Remember, whenever we have 10 ones, we can trade those out for a 10 bar. So we're just going to get rid of those. Trade the ones. Trade the ones out for a 10 bar. So those go bye-bye, and we're going to now count how many tens we have. And we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and I covered up the other one, so that would be 80. So 12 plus 68 is 80. That's how you're going to represent it using visuals. and then we need to write a story. Again, whenever it's asking you to write a story, you're writing a word problem that represents the number problem they're giving you. So there were 68 rubber bands in a bag. Mrs. Lopez found 12 more in her drawer. How many did she have altogether? So that's a word problem that represents our number problem. And the last thing they want us to do is how do we know our answer is correct? They want us to check our work. And remember, whenever we check our work, we use that inverse operation where we're going to go back and do the opposite. So we're going to take the sum of 68 plus 12, which was 80, and then we're going to subtract it from one of our add-ins. I decided to subtract 80 minus 68, and if we subtracted that, the answer was 12. So we know our answer is correct because it equaled the second add-in. Again, I hope these videos are very helpful and you guys are finding them useful. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and I will do my best to get you an answer. I want you to know that I miss you guys all very much, and we will talk soon. Goodbye.